Hello, it's Brian's Game Night. Please like and subscribe. I got like 15 whole viewers. So all of a sudden, everywhere there's like 20 videos on this Reddit post that was out like what, a decade ago, maybe, I don't know. Anyway, it did kind of though stir me to say, hey, I probably want to do a video myself. I will not go through 44 rules. You can read that yourself. I'm not, but basically, in a nutshell, this is some guy, and it seems like it must be old because, or it doesn't have to be old, but it seems older because they're meeting in person, whereas most people nowadays meet online. But they're meeting in person, and a lot of these things are happening in the house, instead of just being at the gaming table. Um, but let me um, tell you my opinions from someone who's been playing these games since the 70s. Um, First off, I think one of the biggest rules of any role playing game at a table or online is the golden rule. We don't have the golden rule very much nowadays. I won't even, even though almost every religion has the golden rule, or any religion or philosophy has the golden rule, we don't really follow it now. And that's, I think, the problem with this in a nutshell. I don't go to somebody's house and put my feet on their coffee table. I don't eat chips and get chips on their couch or at the table, get food on his books. I don't do that. That's what a child does. If you're acting like a child and you were in my house, I wouldn't I wouldn't throw you out, but I would definitely probably point out to you very nicely in front of everybody. I give you a little passive aggressive. That's an in person. And I think it's so funny. You go, well, you wouldn't do that at your house. Actually, they would. I'm certain if you walk into some of these houses, they look like pigsties. They're pigs. And what you do with that is um, you you change. If it gets really bad, really really bad, you do one of two things. You just take them off the side, you know not in person, not in front of everyone. Just say, yeah, you're not invited back, and just do it nicely. And if you think that you can't do it in person because they may kill you, you do it by email. You're not allowed in my house anymore. It's very simple. Don't do it in front of people because then that gets everybody offensive. Now, moving on to my situation where I have to run now online all the time. I'm finding there are very different things that are happening online than they would in person. People feel they have more freedom to just not show up, or to, that's a big one. They just don't show up and they don't tell you. That just kills me. Um, my new, and this has gotten so bad and in such different ways. I always had the policy, well, your character is there, but they're in the background. Because, for instance, if you don't show up and everybody was literally going to walk into the next room, the next game session, we had to stop it there. Well, your character's still walking through the next room. And if there's a fire breathing dragon, then we roll for an area effect. Your character is going to be in the area effect, and he may die. Your character can die when you're not here at my game. Now, I'm not gunning for you, but if the physicality of the situation is such, your character just doesn't disappear that game session. I used to do that to some extent, but no, the game's going to go on. If I can show up, you can show up. Now, I get it. Things happen. Physical, medical, whatever reason, and that's all right. I, your character's not going to become part of the fight. You'll just sit back and watch. But if the fighting goes into your character space, he may die. It's just a matter of fact. And you, you know, that's why now if though we stop at a certain place where you're deciding whether to go turn left or right, well then I will say, well, your character turned right while everybody turned left, so he's not in the game. If I can take you out of the game, I will. But if you're in that room the moment because you just because you can't show up and you're in the room with everybody else from the last game, you're still in that room. There's no changing that. And I've had that happen a few times. Most people, though, and here, oh, this is the other part. I see this a lot. The fifth edition people, and when I say fifth edition people, I mean the ones that have grown up on it. Not the older people who play fifth edition now, but the people who the generation that fifth edition was made while they were growing up and learning it. Those people are the ones, well, you shouldn't have done that. Whereas the older ones, like, yeah, sorry, I couldn't make it. I'll make another character or whatever. It's rare that people die when they're not there, but it does happen because, the game literally goes on. I can't stop the game while you were not in this, while you were in this room. Now, if your character is able to get out of the room, like if we roll initiative, then you're number one. Oh, well, actually, I kind of take that back. Another rule I implement: when you're not here, you're last on the initiative. If you're in that room and you can't leave that room, you're the last on the initiative. You are not part of the rollings. You don't. Your character doesn't get to roll and supersede another player who actually showed up. And so, um, but anyway, the other things of these rules, one of the rules was like, if you don't show, I think it may have been if you don't show up on time, or if you did something he didn't like, he was going to give you half your hit points. That's crazy shit. I would never do anything like that. Um, I don't. There's no need to discipline players in that way. It's crazy. But I can see though throwing things back at people, right? And oh, there was one on there, and this is actually kind of in case in point. There's one on there like if you treat an NPC bad, expect it to come back at you. I actually use that. Oh yeah. If you go into like a tavern and you start sexually harassing the maid, the barmaid, and you don't get to go through a town, act like hooligans, and don't expect people to, you know, my games, while I do create, you're going into this temple today or whatever. If you're in town or if you're interacting with NPCs, your interactions have consequences, good or bad. You see, good or bad. So I see that a lot in the Gen Zs. They feel like, oh, it's a video game. I'll just like kill the barmaid. you know, we'll rape and kill her. We'll do whatever they think they're going to do. Or it might somebody just something like, I don't tip the barmaid, whatever. It's going to affect. These are while they are NPCs. When you create a situation, you create a situation, right? So yeah, I do that. And I feel he's completely right in that. If you do something horrific to NPCs or good, it will come back later on. Um, if you save an NPC's life, he may show up and save yours later on. It just happens that way. Though I find most of my players, maybe they know me so well, they don't interact. Very rarely will they do shit, right? Um, but I think, yeah. So the golden rule, and he talked about people bringing snacks or ordering food separate from ordering when everybody else order food, or eating when everybody else is eating. Now I don't know. Snacking is kind of one of those things where everybody's going to snack at different times, but I think like if you're going to order food, it should all be done at once. If you're stopping it, and not necessarily just food, but if you're stopping the game because of your own little thing, I mean, maybe to a point, especially if it's your turn and you have to go to the bathroom all suddenly. Okay, but I've seen it. Oh, phone calls at the table. Are you? I mean, I get it. There are some people who something has literally came up. The child swallowed something, but there are these people who think, well, I'm going to be playing this game, but I have my own business. Well, if you have your own business and you cannot, I mean, literally 5 or 6 phone calls in an hour time. No, no. Um, or we will just, ignore you completely. Um, there needs to be a respect for everybody at that table and in their time and their effort to be there. And I think that's what these 44 rules is about. It's about respect for each other. And I don't necessarily mean, you can say, well, respect is earned, yes, but there's also needs to be a commonality of a baseline of respect. If we don't have that, we're not going to be able to have this game or anything where we show up in. And I think, especially with everything going on today in today's world, there is no respect for anything. And I know that sounds like such an old person's, saying something, but it is so true. It is just so very true. Um, I think that, so I think what you do to create this atmosphere, I think a really good, we'll just say DM, GM, says these are my rules, and have rules that really, they're not just like one-sided evil overlord things, just common decent rules. And also they need to be rules that were implemented because you've had experience, right? A rule may sound good, but in reality, can people really be expected to do one thing or another? Maybe not. But if your experience is there are people that come into the game an hour late, that's just not right. And they come in the hour late every game. So you make this rule up ahead of time. You say, you know, um, if you are an hour late in the game, your character doesn't gain any experience points, or maybe half the experience points that everybody else gets. You got to give them some experience points. They actually showed up. Okay, fine. Though I would not be so, I would not object to not getting any at all. You show up an hour late. You show up, again for the 5th time. You know, and what I'm trying to remember what I've done. I've had those, and that's the other thing. These issues kind of come and go, right? You have this really bad issue with this dude, and then the next group of people, you have another issue that comes up. You don't have that same issue, but now you have a new issue, right? So it does kind of, but eventually you will have a set of true rules that are not, um, and you say, well, but you're kind of punishing people for doing things. I can see being calling it that, but I can also say it's just what's the word? It's just things that happen through your decision making. I don't know how to say it. But you need to, even though it's a game, And I think especially nowadays where there's so many older people who are still playing the game, and then those people they've been growing up, even like in fifth edition. Fifth edition is like what 10 years old. So if you started like when you were 20, now you're almost 30, and you're still doing these things, it looks so bad on you as an adult, doesn't it? I mean, does it not? And I get it. It's on the line. I don't care. I just show up, whatever. Okay, then I can just, you know, the best feature of Discord, especially one that I run, I just literally push a button, they're gone forever. They can't get back in ever. I've only done that once though, but that guy really deserved it. But you know, I just I think this is civility. It's about civility and also about maturity. And you can be 16, 17, 18 years old and still have a maturity about what you will say and do at the table, or in this case, online. Um, Again, the 44 rules. This guy goes off. I truly believe, but you have to understand where he's coming from too. He's had these experiences. You can tell some of these rules are like, oh, somebody did something horrible. he, he's like, yeah, we're going to have to make that rule, right? So I get it. I think being aggressive about these are my rules, that's not ever going to get anybody. But at the same time, you have to, in a very nice, but very firm way, establish what the rules are before you begin the game, play the game. I think a lot of times, especially like with a one shot, it's impossible to go through rules, or it just seems so because you're never going to see these people again unless they want to play. So I don't know. Maybe you should. I never do, but I probably should mention what rules are at one shots too. Which, by the way, today I'm doing one shot. So I don't know. Um, and there is a sort of, you probably don't want to implement rules until you have to, right? I think, though, in the long run, it's probably better to implement them and to spell out, especially if you think you're going to be doing a long session. This is going to be something that's going to be months. You need to put out rules. I haven't yet, but I'll be honest, for the most part, I've had good players, and I think, though, I won't say, that's partly me. I can see if somebody's going to be a decent player or not. But then again, even the players you love, the players, they'll start doing things. And that's where, it needs to be nicely but firmly told what to do. That way you don't have these ultimatum 44 rule things. I don't know. I could go on. I think I'm kind of circling back around and whatnot because I could definitely, I can definitely tell you some really doozy stories over the years. Uh, I've seen games that were ran really horrible and really horrible things happen. I've seen where a DM, he had a friend playing in the game, and he let that friend go with a really long loose rope, and he literally destroyed that game. The friend did. Now, one can say, was it the friend's fault or was it yours? Because it's like a dog. If you don't have the dog on the leash and it starts killing people, well, that is your fault. It's not really the dog's fault. The dog was just, in fact, one may even argue the dog was the instrument of your bad, pet ownership, right? Um, Same thing with this guy. And I won't go into it too much, but he started with me. He didn't like me. And they threw me out of the game. Then he didn't like the DM's girlfriend. That's when the DM like, oh, yeah, you're an asshole. So he threw him out of the game. But amazingly, even before that all happened, there was a fight between him and a girl. This not the girlfriend, but another girl. And they got into a shouting match. And there was, I mean, it almost became. I thought in fact, at one point, he threatened her verbally. And remember, he still didn't get kicked out. He verbally threatened her. And I remember gathering my D&D stuff because I was leaving. I was not doing that. I knew, oh, the cops most likely will be called. They weren't. But I thought, yeah, I don't want to deal with that at all. And I literally picked up my shit and left the house. So I guess maybe the art of all this is knowing when to say something about it all. This is the DM. And knowing when not to say, that's also a big part of it. But remember that this is a person who didn't follow the golden rule at all and felt like it didn't. That's probably somebody you don't want at your table or virtual table. All right, I know. So I think to sum up again, I think the guy who posted these 44 rules went overboard, but I totally get where he's coming from. All right, enough there. Bye bye.